Well, hello there. Long time no see. Welcome, wrestling fans. This is the special edition of the Wrestling Fans Insight. And today we are going to be getting into our WrestleMania 41 reactions that just happened this past weekend. I'm joined by my co host, Brian the Hype Ballard. How are you?
Good. WrestleMania happened. I thought this was a prequel. I thought this was a pre-addictions video. My bad. No, it's going good. It's going good. We had WrestleMania and we had two nights and a tale of two cities, right? Two different styles on each evening, and we're going to get into it.
Now, Brian, after you've watched this event, I just kind of want to get a feel because, I have a feeling after we just talked before going on air. And sorry for my voice, folks. I'm a little tired. I've been having a long couple of weeks, which is why we haven't had much for episodes lately. But we should be back to normal, hopefully, after not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. But Brian, again, I think we're going to have a lot of differing opinions on this because I think we both see some different things how this weekend went. Overall, your thoughts on how the two-night event went?
Sure. If I just put it kind of straightforward in transparency, I really believe, and I joke and I half joke when I say this, I feel like it was the pre-show. Night one was the pre-show for night two. And the reason I say that is because my own feelings when watching it, right? It's like Christmas, right? Versus Christmas Eve. And, you're not getting all the oohs and ahs that you get on Christmas Day that you would get on Christmas Eve, but you're kind of like, when's it going to get here? When's it going to get here, right? And I don't want to leave my milk and cookies out. I want to just open gifts now, but they're not here, that kind of thing. And so when I look at it, night one, to me, it took forever just to get going until the main event. And then I felt like it was WrestleMania. And then I was worried all night long the next day. And I said, please, I hope they keep the momentum of the main event into night two. And I was like, because it just didn't feel like it really was WrestleMania. Night two definitely felt like WrestleMania. And I was sitting there as a fan, right? And I'm like, come on, girls, put on a good show, set the tone for the night. Let's get the momentum going. Let's get the energy. And they knocked it out of the park, which we'll talk about. And then I was sitting there going, okay, what match is going to follow this? Who's going to keep the baton rolling, pass the baton and keep it going? And then they did it. And then next thing you know, I'm in the middle of watching WrestleMania Night 2, and I said, this is WrestleMania. I said, this is the entrances. So that was kind of my overall take. You said you had kind of a different thought on it. So, I think you gave a good analogy earlier with a little up and down.
Yeah, I mean, for me, was this the best WrestleMania we've had of the 41 WrestleManias? I would say no. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing because not every single WrestleMania is going to hit a home run. I was really hoping things were going to, after the last 2 years with Cody and the Bloodline, we were going to see something even more unpredictable coming as far as, toward the end of the program. And I kind of felt like we got that one firework that didn't quite have as much gunpowder in it, for the explosion. We kind of got the dud. However, I'm not saying there was a little bit of a kind of a opinion spat in our group chat about how we seen things. I don't think night one was quite as bad as everyone made it seem to be. Night two, I would say I would agree it was slightly better, but not by much. And that's my opinion, folks. My opinion isn't like the standard or anything. It's just my opinion. I kind of feel like it was a roller coaster. We had a great match, then it went down. Great match, down. It just felt like up, down, up, down, up, down. Really, the one thing I will give AEW is at least the last two pay-per-views, I will give them this. They have definitely improved a lot in keeping the fan a little more anticipated after every match. This WrestleMania just did not seem like it had the fans' attention span after every match. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And one thing I also noticed was speaking of the fans, right? The crowd. There was times where I did not feel that energy in the crowd in night one, right? And I think that also is not just on the crowd, but because they pay a lot of money to go there, right? They plan a lot of part of their trip to see this, and so it is on the spectacle and like the product that's put out there. Where night two, I felt that crowd was a little different. The crazy thing is these are probably the same people on night one and two. Because usually if you're buying a 2-day pass, and you're not usually picking or choosing night one or night two, right? And I felt like the energy was there on night two from the audience. So,
you mean of that record-setting 120 something thousand fans there?
yeah, that are probably the same fans that bought 2 tickets. Yeah,
yeah, that's.
Oh, you're muted. But yeah, to your point, definitely, they try to do with the double, attendance for the same people. I think that's what you're getting at there.
Right. What I have a hard time with is how many of those fans were from the night one. That's really hard to sit here and say this is very celebratory with the 120 something thousand, because even my own wife pointed that out. It's like, well, okay, wait a minute, how many of those people returned from night one? So that's why I really have. That's why I really get annoyed when we start talking about things that are outside the programming, like what's the gate or how many people are in attendance.
Yeah.
I don't ever, pardon my language, I don't give a shit about stuff like that. All I give a shit is give me a program that I want to watch and can keep me awake from start to finish.
Yep.
You do that, you did a great job. I didn't feel like WrestleMania did that for me this year, and I don't mean to crap on it a little bit, because the one thing I really hate is being negative. But I will say we will talk a lot about the good from WrestleMania here going forward in this program today. But Brian, should we just go ahead and get right to it, because we got a lot to cover?
Yeah,
for both these nights.
We got a double attendance record WrestleMania to cover. Let's get in.
First and foremost, I want to thank the fans of pro wrestling for presenting the Wrestling Fans Insight. Be sure to go check us out at the www.thefansofprowrestling.com, and also on our YouTube channel at Wrestling Fans Insight. But most of all, be sure to go check out Brian. He's on the X app, the Brian Adkins, and his YouTube channel, the Tap Out Talk, where he did actually just a couple episodes with was it 2 or 1 episodes? I can't remember.
I did one after each night of Mania. I will be fair, I did not do a match-by-match breakdown, but just some initial raw thoughts. So if it's not the most organized content, I promise it's just my brain spewing out of my mouth as I watched so much wrestling that night. So it just was really quick, and I was super tired, but it still got it in for everyone.
And Brian does a really excellent job. So please go check out his YouTube channel. And if you like it, hit that like button and also subscribe to it. So, Brian, the first night, wow. I can't believe we started off with this, because this always drives me nuts, especially when it's the Royal Rumble winners. It annoys me that they say they get their main event spot, but there wasn't a main event match. That's what pisses me off. So, for the World Heavyweight Championship, main event, Jey Uso gets the victory over Gunther finally and becomes your new World Heavyweight Champion. Your thoughts?
Well, first thought is what you alluded to about Royal Rumble winner. Neither Royal Rumble winner this year main evented WrestleMania. So just kind of a little point there. And I do ask the question, you guys can let us know in the chat, is the Royal Rumble lost its allure of going to the main event of WrestleMania? You can let us know in the comments below. But ultimately, I actually liked the match. I expected them to do good work together, right? They have wrestled 3 times. The only problem is when I know they introduced Jay in his entrance, they touted, Gunther. They touted, oh, he's 3-0 against Jey Uso. And I said, he's done for, because whenever you throw a record out like that, he didn't even make it halfway down the ramp. And I was like, Gunther's going to lose. I was like, they just build it up way too much that he's so dominant. And, but outside of that, I enjoyed the match. The ending, like many people in the community, I did not care for. And because I do feel that it hurt Gunther. He is a unstoppable juggernaut, right? He has now been beaten and lost 2 major titles in the last 2 WrestleManias in one-on-one matches. Last year, it was a fluke, right? It was Sami Zayn getting lucky with the IC title. Fair enough. We can forgive that, right? Everybody loves a quick underdog story. But this year, it was the World Championship, and Jey Uso made him tap to his own chokehold within less than 4 seconds. And not even just that, he made him tap. We could have had him pass out, done the Stone Cold thing. You just honored that in the Hall of Fame, right? You could have done, even a, something to the nature, I would have been okay with some Jimmy Uso interference, because we know the bloodline gets stuff done like that, right? I would have been okay with some double Uso splashes while the referee's down. And I don't think anybody would hate Jay for that, right? Because he had to do something to get over this monster that's Gunther. But to have Gunther tap out in less than 4 seconds to his own move, I did not like that ending. It spoiled the match for me a little bit. But if you actually take that out, the match was good. They worked well together. And Jey Uso is very over with the crowd. And something I keep pointing out to fans that maybe are against Jey Uso, and I'll make this final point. Jey Uso is about these younger fans. I met a fan, younger kid, and he is 5 years old, right? And he is a Jey Uso fan. He loves eating. He loves the bouncing. And I'm like, you know what? He's appealing to an audience with the bright colors and everything of these younger fans, almost like what Bret Hart did when he put glasses on a kid in the audience, right? So I look at that and I say, I get why they're going with Jey in this. Do I think there could have been other opportunities for other stars? Absolutely. But I get it. I understand it. I just wish that Jey would have kind of won in a different way that didn't take away from Gunther. I know that was long-winded, but I had to get all that out because obviously it started out the night. What were your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for taking up all that time because, I don't like to get too long-winded, but I will keep it short and sweet. I think a lot of people who did not like the way Gunther tapped out need to also remember anytime Gunther was ever put in a submission hold, like when it was locked in, he never wasted any time to tap out. And I think in some ways where a lot of people don't see that as a good thing, well, in a way, Gunther's trying to save himself so he doesn't get too beaten up because who knows? He may be winning that championship from Jey Uso tonight on Raw. Not that this is not a spoiler because we're actually recording this as Raw is happening, folks. But the one thing I will say is it's not the first time Gunther's tapped out right away. He did it with Ilya in NXT UK when Ilya won the NXT UK championship from Gunther when he was known as Walter. But I think it is. I didn't mind the tap out or the chokehold finish because it's very poetic. That's exactly what Gunther was doing to Jey each and every single week between the Royal Rumble leading up to WrestleMania. It was in a way kind of Jey Uso giving Gunther a taste of his own medicine. And in some ways, I can understand why fans don't like it when another wrestler uses their opponent's finisher on them. But in some ways, it was kind of, I guess you can say, poetic justice. So
it definitely had the script to it. I'm smirking because I'm thinking from somebody who has put a rear naked choke on people, right? I'm not scared of Jey Uso's chokehold. I'm not. I don't believe he can lock that in correctly. And I'm not, no disrespect, yeet Usos, right? I'm sitting here going, now Gunther, I believe that guy can lock it on. And I believe he would have me out in seconds, right? But
I know I'm not pissing you off anytime soon.
So yeah, and I see it. I'm like, I'm not scared of his chokehold. I'm not. There's a lot of space in between it, and but yeah, it definitely fits to the story 100%. Let me ask you this: where does Gunther go from here? Because I do want to get your thoughts.
I think he takes a step back, rebounds, and sets his sight on regaining that World Heavyweight Championship. Really, you think about it, would you really want him to see himself go for the Intercontinental Championship? That wouldn't make any sense. Maybe come Money in the Bank, who knows? Maybe Gunther may be in that contest to snatch that case and regain it. I mean, there's a number of ways. Could become SummerSlam. I mean, right now, that's the only thing I can really say is Gunther needs to just refocus on getting that championship back from Jay.
Yep.
I just don't know what to do with Gunther from here right now.
Right now, I would have Rusev debut tonight on Raw, or re-debut, I should say, and I would have Rusev attack Gunther. And I would go with that feud because I would be excited about that feud. So
now I have to ask, since you brought it up, were you expecting Rusev at WrestleMania last night like everybody else?
I was not. Well, I was for a second. I'm not going to lie. But then I realized no matter who is going to fight Randy, they're going to lose at Mania. And it wouldn't have been a great way to bring a guy back and re-debut him. But I do see, by the way, happy Rusev Day. I didn't wish you happy Rusev Day. Because remember, every day is Rusev Day. So happy Rusev Day. But ultimately, I do think that, Gunther could be a fun feud for him and a nice power versus power. They both have good submission holds. And I think that would be a fun matchup to get us through the spring. And then to your point, Money in the Bank for Gunther might be a fun way to go about that as well.
And as our good buddy Carlos would say, nothing but a great old meat fest going there. So,
That's funny.
All right, let's move on to the second match of night one for the World Tag Team Championship. And I can't believe this actually happened. The New Day defeats the War Raiders and becomes the new World Tag Team Champions. And I'm going to be honest, I really was not expecting that to happen.
Oh, yeah?
I did predict the New Day would win, but I was hoping it was going to be a wrong prediction. And sure enough, I'm just like, okay. So the only thing I can really say is the whole reason for this change was maybe because it almost seems like the War Raiders get a little bit of reaction, but not as good of the reaction as what the New Day gets. And, like I mentioned to my wife, Sarah, because she was like, they really put the championships on. And I said, well, let's look at this. They've gotten over as full-blown heels for what they've done with Big E and how they've started finally winning some matches and taking some of these newer teams out. I think New Day's got enough fresh blood to work with here that, they could have a good, successful reign until finally somebody's built up to actually beat these guys. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was the right choice having the New Day get the titles. They have been a long-term loyal members of this WWE roster. When's the last time they've actually had a championship match at a Mania, right? Like they've always been the host, jumping out of a box of cereal or promoting their bootios or whatever, right? And
throwing their pancakes.
throwing their pancakes. I mean, they got the whole breakfast, right? But ultimately, they had a match. They won a championship. They're credible. They're one of the most winningest tag teams of all time, right? With the longest streaks. And so I feel like this heel version of that deserves to have a little light shined on them. The War Raiders and them had a fun little match. For me, it took me a while to snap out of the reaction of the last match. So by the time I got into this match, it was already almost over, right? I will say the War Raiders entrance attire looked very Toys R Us-ish. I was kind of like looking, usually the spikes and the things have a little bit, and I was like, and I didn't want to say anything. And my one friend I was watching with, he goes, yeah, they're bad. I just went, okay. Cause, so that was the thing that kind of, especially for Mania, but I was surprised that Big E didn't get involved here. I was expecting Big E to get involved in some way, that maybe he was trying to get revenge and then caused a mess up that cost the War Raiders the match, right? Instead of trying to hurt the New Day, he actually ended up helping them by mistake. I could have seen something to that nature, and that would just get the heels over more, right? Because you tried to mess up my stride, and you helped me win, you idiot, so they could have played into that.
Yeah. So now going forward, who's next for the New Day?
Oh, it's a good question. They're on Raw. I'm trying to think of a tag team that they could align with because I wasn't a fan of when they split up these tag titles a year ago because I said, are they going to have enough of a division to support two divisions? So I don't know who they'll go with. Maybe a Big E managed team. Maybe we can find a combination of some NXT guys that are coming up, and maybe Big E can become a manager of them and kind of get behind them against the New Day. What do you think? You got something in the mind?
I don't, and this is the problem with WWE is their tag team division for the men have not really been awesome the last few years. Well, I should say probably almost the last 2.5 decades. I don't know, because for me, I think they really need to kind of go back to basics on building a proper tag team division. For me, tag teams should kind of be uniform in some way, right?
Yeah.
Like the Heart Foundation, Demolition,
Yep.
the Brain Busters, the Killer Bees,
The Rockers. Got to throw out Marty and Sean there.
the Ding Dongs. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. The problem is the last couple of decades, these tag teams have been kind of two single stars just thrown together all of a sudden, and for me, it doesn't work. That's not a proper way to do tag team divisions. And I feel WWE has the roster to do it. They just don't get creative enough with it. I think right now this is the best time for them to start working on that aspect because tag team wrestling is a big thing still. And, if you want to have a division with championships, you got to have the basic fundamentals of a tag team, But right now I'm lost in the fold because the only two tag teams I can really point out on Raw are the New Day, the War Raiders. Who else do we have out there?
And to your point, that's not a throw together tag team, right? Like,
right.
You can throw Miz and R-Truth together, kind of established, but they're still a throw
but
together.
They're on different brands, though, is the problem.
Right. But you do have the draft coming up. You could mix and match.
The draft that never stays.
Right. So, and then free agency and then deals. But yeah, it's, it was what I was concerned about initially when they split these belts up. And I said, man, I don't know if they have the teams to support two divisions. And like a year later,
Well, you haven't seen them split the women's tag team division.
Right.
We had to watch them unify the NXT women's tag team championships and the WWE women's championships. I don't think it's any different for the men. I say unify them and have them defend them on either brand.
Yeah. I've always liked that because I felt like you could, and it gives time to grow tag teams because while they're defending on one brand, well, here's a couple up and comers. I think of like Cesaro and Sheamus, right? They were two throw together guys that actually formed into a tag team, the Bar, right?
The Bar.
But they were a throw together and they were the most successful at making it an actual team. And I was like, wow, they actually made this work after a couple of years, of blending. But yeah, you're right. I agree with you 100%, John.
And for me, if this was up until the point right here, this was the match of the night for night one up until the main event happened. Jade Cargill gets her revenge over Naomi. Oh man, I'll tell you what, these ladies deserved flowers for this match. They just killed it and knocked it out of the park. It was very brutal from start to finish. I thought overall this told a great story, but something tells me we're not done seeing Jade Cargill going for more revenge. And I think I have this really gut feeling very soon Bianca might be on the radar for Jade as well, but I don't know how they'll play that out. But your thoughts?
All right, so I'm going to have the opposite take here, but this is good because this creates great conversation and dialogue. So ultimately, I'm not going to down the match, right? I thought the match was fine. So my one issue with it was it felt like a match. And I know that sounds weird, but the energy I seen at Elimination Chamber, right? This is a girl that put you out. She threw you through a car window, right? And
You smashed your head with the cage door.
right. And then counter that at Elimination Chamber. Yeah. Jade Cargill, that energy she came in there with, excuse me, it was like a scary movie, right? It was like a serial killer coming out to just take out this person, smashing her head in the chamber, looking at her friend Bianca, who's shrieking in the chamber and can't do anything. And I was like, this is that brutality, right? Rhea Ripley style. But ultimately, I didn't feel that same energy in this matchup. I felt like they had a good match. I felt like Jade did very well, and Naomi wrestling at Mania in a one-on-one match, which we don't see too much of Jade, right? Because as she's come along in the last couple of years since debuting. But I felt like if you put me through a car window, John, and I was coming back to get revenge and you stole my title, I'm not putting a wrist lock on you, right? I am coming at you like I did Elimination Chamber. And I would expect you in this role, like being Naomi, I would expect you to almost go like Howard Lee Heel, running on the outside, swinging under the ropes, just like dodging any way I can until I can ultimately get my hands on you. And if I'm Jade, I'm grabbing a fistful of the hair and I'm swinging her into the barricade and I'm swinging her like I'm just woman handling her at that point, right? And that was the thing I didn't, see. I guess that's what I expected, right? I didn't expect the wrist locks and the, things like that. I expected just a brutal beatdown and chasing you all around. And no matter how that match ends, whether it's Jade ending the way it did, or whether it would have been Naomi getting the better advantage or a count out, that could have warranted another match, a cage match or something to that level, right? Where they can't escape. I think there's a little missed opportunity there. And I think they could have booked this a little long-term and actually got a reason to keep somebody confined. And that's where those cage match feuds are really great. Again, let me say, I think both ladies did a fine job working a wrestling match, right? And I know there's a lot of people that will like that, and I'm not going to say anything bad about people that like that, right? Because everything about wrestling affects people, what they watch. It's like watching different movies, right? And you're like, ooh, that first take on that didn't really get me, but sometimes I go back and watch a movie and I'm like, you know what? Actually, that was pretty good. It's just my expectations. The preview I got for that movie was just a little different than what the movie turned out for me. Any counter thoughts on that?
Well, first off, damn, you're brutal. But no, I understand your point. Could it have been a little more vicious from Jade? Yeah, I can understand that. However, we also weren't quite as sure how aggressive she can really get in the ring too. Because, with the attack that she put to Naomi there at the Elimination Chamber, I see your point on that. Yeah, they could have been brutal, but I would say as far as a wrestling match, I still think they nailed it out of the park.
Yeah.
I think the story is far from over. I still think we're going to end up seeing Bianca Belair on the radar of Jade Cargill because we don't know if really this was just mostly Naomi being a pawn for Bianca in this whole storyline. That's how I kind of felt from the get-go. But who knows? I mean, there's lots of possibilities that can still go on with these three ladies here. And I don't think we've seen the end of these three.
You want the bloodline. You want multiple years of chapters.
You're right. Just not as long.
No, you're making a good point. The match was good and they worked well. Agreed.
And besides, how can you not forget about the way Jade caught Naomi jumping off the top turnbuckle and catching her for a suplex?
Yep.
I mean, you don't see that too often from anyone. That's one thing I have to give flowers to Jade on. But now we're going to move on to our United States Championship match. Oh, I think this was pretty much a majority vote here. Jacob Fatu dethrones LA Knight and becomes the new United States champion. I don't really have a whole lot to say because I think we're all kind of going to agree on this one. We saw this coming a long way. Jacob Fatu, when he debuted, he was just a force not to even reckon with. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, he's such an athletic big man. I mean, and he's good. I'm just going to say, I know that's not great in-depth analysis, but he is good. He's entertaining. He's fun to watch. He countered pretty well with LA Knight. I felt like they gelled well, but it really showed off Fatu's athleticism in a big moment. And it was nice to see Haku there briefly at the end, just quickly, right? It kind of warmed the heart there seeing that a little. The end of the day, I believe this. I want LA Knight to get away from this United States Championship. Far away. I don't want Fatu to be the Shinsuke Nakamura where he has it for a few weeks and he gives it back to LA Knight. I want LA Knight to win the King of the Ring. I'll say it right now. I want him to win the King of the Ring, and I want him to go to SummerSlam for a championship. If we don't do this now, we are not going to get these big moments with LA Knight. And I feel like that window is closing ever so quickly, right? And this is WWE's chance to really get the rocket behind a guy that has entertained us for a while and actually has a great energy. I don't know which title he can go for, right? Maybe Jay doesn't have his title by time that's up, right? And maybe he goes against that. I don't know if you would be interested in a John Cena versus LA Knight match. I don't know if that's a SummerSlam fun little mini feud. But I do think that LA Knight needs to be pushed in the King of the Ring. But Jacob Fatu is going to be a fun watch as United States title.
And I agree with you. I was talking with a buddy at work today about this. I think one of John Cena's possible rivalries while he holds that undisputed WWE championship, I have a gut feeling that some way, somehow, LA Knight might get a match or two with him. Will it happen? Who knows? But I'm with you. If LA Knight doesn't win Money in the Bank, at least give him King of the Ring, Get him that SummerSlam match. Let's see what happens. Let's go on. This was my dud of the night. And it's really funny because you compare my opinion to about the majority of the IWC. I think a lot of people dug this match, even though it was supposed to originally be Rey Mysterio taking on El Grande Americano. We found out in the pre-show Rey Mysterio was not cleared to wrestle that night, and his immediate substitute was Rey Fenix. And I actually got this wrong, folks. It's actually El Grande Americano defeats Rey Fenix.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what did you have?
Yeah, I screwed that up. So here we go, folks. Now I fixed it. El Grande Americano actually defeats Rey Fenix in the match that Rey Mysterio was no longer to partake in. Again, I kind of felt bad. Rey Fenix, his first WrestleMania, felt like he was tossed a default loss, which wasn't fair to him. I thought either way, no matter what, even if it was Rey Mysterio, El Grande Americano was still going to win, just despite being, the new luchador recently debuted. Brian, your thoughts overall on this match?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it's Rey Fenix's first WrestleMania, but it is also El Coffee Americano's first to WrestleMania, right? So it's his first too. So, could have went either way. But yeah, I didn't judge this match too harshly, just because of the fact that they had such a short time to put it together, right? I was told that the finish is pretty much the same finish that they had planned with Rey and with the plate and the whole thing in the mask. But at the end of the day, I'm a sucker for Lucha Libre wrestling, and pretty much any kind of Lucha Libre, I'm like, ooh, fun, awesome, right? But it didn't overstay its welcome. It was in, it was out, it got done, and it moved on. So I'm interested to see where they go with the, I keep saying Coffee Americano because I like the name at that, but I'm just going to roll with it. El Coffee Americano. He is going to be on WWE Speed in the next tournament this week, so I don't know if they'll feature him more there as well. But I liked it. I enjoyed it, and it's going to lead to an unmasking eventually, right? Or a mask versus mask match with somebody. So.
All right, let's go on to probably what has been seen as the most heated rivalry from the get-go. The WWE Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton successfully retains over Charlotte Flair. This match I didn't think was bad, but it wasn't great. I am happy for the fact that Tiffany Stratton did win. She was put over by Charlotte. Um, all the mishaps building up to this match was not awesome, I will say. Obviously, with the promo where it was noted Charlotte Flair went off script, Tiffany kind of went in deep to the personal response with the off script. I mean, it's really hard to bounce back from something like that to keep interest in this feud, but I think they did a good enough job to make this match work for WrestleMania on night one. For me, right choice, build Tiffany Stratton up. However, I do think we need to kind of work a little better with her mic skills. It seemed that they were good for quite some time, especially at the tail end of NXT. She came in really good. I think she works much better as a heel. I'm sorry. But the baby face Barbie just is not cutting it for me. I think we need to get her turned back to the dark side very soon. But your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge for her to play the face, right? Let me ask you a question. In this match, and I think you'll get what I'm getting at here, was Charlotte working, or was she, not in the industry sense, but was she working, or was she just doing her job?
Wow. I kind of think in a way she was just doing her job is the better way for me to kind of look at how it went. You can definitely tell this is not the same Charlotte Flair as in the past few WrestleManias. In fact, if I remember right, she didn't wrestle last year. But yeah, this was not quite as intense as like when she had her matches with Rhea Ripley or Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a dud in some ways on her side, but in some ways also I can't really say she underperformed either. It was kind of more it was a good enough deal. I feel like Tiffany was kind of holding up her end, but in some ways I think a lot of the IWC feels is she may have not been holding up her end of the deal like she should have.
Yeah,
I hope that answers it.
No, that's fair analysis. And because I wanted to bring that question up, right? And to anybody, join in the chat in the comments. But ultimately, when I felt that when I was watching it, to your point, you brought up the Rhea Ripley matches at Mania, right? Like definitely working, right? And working really well. And, it made me wonder, I was like, wow, she's kind of doing her job. She's not doing anything wrong, right? But she's just kind of doing the job, And Ric Flair tweeted, and I couldn't get this tweet out of my head during the match. He tweeted and he's like, "Oh, congratulations to both of them. And you guys stole the show," and in my head, I'm like, yeah, they may have stolen the show, but it's petty theft. It's not grand larceny we're talking about here, right? Like it's very small and there wasn't much competition up to this point. I kind of checked out a little bit. I mean, when you're talking more about the chipped tooth than the match.
Oh yeah.
That is, which looked brutal and I felt bad for her, but that is kind of where I'm like, okay, we're talking more about the chipped tooth than the match, right?
And see, I don't know if you caught it. I thought somewhere right where I thought that happened, it may be just me, I heard something different at that moment. It almost sounded like you could hear Charlotte apologize to Tiffany saying, "Sorry about my knee,"
Yeah.
And, and I think Charlotte truly was sorry for that. I mean, it was just
nobody's trying to hurt
Charlotte,
Yeah. And I agree with you. It was probably like, oh man, I felt bad. I do believe it was a complete accident, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't even really know where that occurred because, like, I swear I looked up and her tooth was chipped, and I was like, whoa, how did that happen? So, but ultimately, I felt like the match happened. It was there. I don't think we need a return bout of any kind. The right person kept the title. this is a chance to build a new star. I do agree with you. I think there is going to be a challenge for her to show that she can work both as a face and heel. But ultimately, if you're going to be a face, maybe give her a mouthpiece or, a manager of sorts. I don't know what that would look like, but
Or Danhausen for an extra set of teeth. No,
I was going to go with a Ken doll, play into the Barbie thing. Maybe get Max Dupree. LA Knight becomes Max Dupree-ish again, right? So,
okay. So now I kind of want to mention, or I'll throw this one at you because you've been throwing some at me.
sure.
So just to kind of go off based off Ric Flair's tweet about Tiffany and Charlotte still on the show, if you were to take the two women matches that night between Jade and Naomi and Tiffany and Charlotte, which women's match do you think stole the show more?
Sure. And I'm going to answer this question as if it's just the match, right? Not the storytelling behind the match. It's definitely Jade and Naomi. Their match looked like it flowed very well. And again, who am I to be so hypocritical, but or not hypocritical, judgmental. But ultimately, I do feel that they worked together and they wanted to work together. And it came out in their product as far as a wrestling match, right? So where I did, I would have never raised that question of, well, are they working or are they just doing their job, right? I would never brought that up in that Jade Cargill match because I do feel like they wanted to work together and try to put the best product on in there. I just would have taken the story a different way in the style, but it doesn't mean it's wrong and it doesn't mean it wasn't good, right? Where Tiffany and Charlotte, I did kind of question, kind of what they were doing. And I know both are, I would challenge them a little. I know both are able to get the job done. I just, dig a little deeper.
All right. Awesome. So for the main event, and this, I think, up until after the Jade and Naomi, this became the match of the night for the triple threat match. This was the very interesting one of them all. Seth freaking Rollins gets the victory over Roman Reigns and CM Punk with the help of a double turning Benedict Heyman. Yeah, I think that's the best way. I think that's the best way to put it was Benedict Heyman. But Brian, why don't we start off with your thoughts?
Oh, wow. To use your roller coaster analogy, this was the peak of that roller coaster, that initial hump on the roller coaster. Ultimately, match of the night easily. I knew that this would have a great feel to it. This was three very talented main event guys, and this was the main eventer Mania match, right? So it was no championship, but that's okay. They all had an intricate story. Seth Rollins the night before had the best promo in SmackDown, and he actually made me want him to win this match with that promo. I was kind of back and forth, and I like a little of each guy, right? And I felt like it was naturally going to go to Punk, but then Roman's Roman. And when Seth had that promo, I said, oh, I hope he wins. And I said, and here's the other thing, Seth Rollins is like the Joker to the Roman Batman. He always gets the upper hand. Or if you want a wrestling analogy, he's the Roddy Piper to Hulk Hogan. He always has a way of getting the advantage on Roman Reigns, and he's one of the rare guys that can do it, right? And Rollins had got him at WrestleMania 31 with the cash-in. He interfered last year with Cody as the Shield again to help defeat Roman. Seth Rollins has been the architect of his destruction, even from when he broke up the Shield. So Seth Rollins getting this and being the architect of the Heyman hustle, right? Or the Benedict Heyman, as you say. It was genius, and Seth has the most to gain from this, and Paul Heyman is going to do that next level phenomenon with Seth Rollins. He already has reinvented himself so much. And the Roman spear move, I want to throw this out, try to turn it to you. Midair, pedigree, chef's kiss. That was a great moment. And the Heyman double cross was amazing. And I'm really excited to see what Paul Heyman does when he's working with Seth Rollins to get him to that even probably a level I thought he hit the glass ceiling already, right? I always thought he was at his peak, and he's just broke through that. And I'm excited to see the stories that he's going to tell. What was your thoughts and take?
So I definitely love the ending. In our group predictions, I predicted Seth Rollins was going to win this. I had a feeling it was going to be something related to Heyman maybe turning on Punk and Roman, because really you look at the storyline, you got two kids that are kind of fighting on who's daddy's best son, in a way.
Yeah.
Who's the favorite child, dad? And and finally dad had enough and said, piss on you both, I'm gonna go to your other brother.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened here. Um, but to your point, you know just when you thought Seth Rollins couldn't do anything more than what he's done already career wise, he always finds the next thing to take it higher. And as much as we all cringed when he started dressing like he was in Becky's closet too long, you know, he made it work. He made fans still cheer for him, sing his song, and I'm interested to see what this new possible faction Seth's gonna cook up here, because if he's got Heyman by his side, this is going to be a group thing, and who knows who's going to be involved. Whether it's going to be kind of like a working team with the Cena and the Rock, which I doubt that it's going to go that direction, but you never know. It's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see, and whatever it's thrown Seth's way and Paul Heyman's way, they're going to make it work.
Yeah.
Heyman is one of the true geniuses in the professional wrestling industry, whether it's sports entertainment, pro wrestling, yada yada. He finds a way to make everything work. And I have no doubt that we're going to see something that we did not expect coming up here very shortly.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing ride, 100%. Paul Heyman plays the sleazy scumbag like so well, right? And I loved how Roman's reaction to his turn, right? And he was like, "Oh, this man loves me," and the over arrogant, chiseled God Roman Reigns, right? And when he was like, "Oh, look, it's like the Shield," and I was like, "Ooh." And fun fact, and I keep saying it, Roman Reigns has never betrayed anyone in his entire career. Even Sami Zayn betrayed him first, right? When at the Rumble. But Roman, even if he didn't treat everybody the best all the time, he was always loyal. And it seems like everybody's always the one that turns it on him first, and then he beats him down. So it was a great main event.
Yes, it was. I mean, that was, like you mentioned, that's how a main event should be, especially on WrestleMania. And we're going to kind of get in a little break before we go into night two. I want to give some special shout outs there to our buddy Carlos at C to the LOS 77 on the X app. Be sure to go check out his account, as he does some really great X Space episodes every Monday and Wednesday. Sometimes he has to change the dates due to his work schedule, but be sure to go check him out. Again, at C to the LOS 77. Be sure to check out his upcoming spaces and get your voice heard. It's nothing but great wrestling conversation on the X app. And also check out and participate in our X community, the Fans of Pro Wrestling. Check it out under the Fans of Pro Wrestling Network's profile at FOPW Network. Or you can also check me and Brian out on the X app. I am at WFI Pod and FOP Network. Brian is at the Brian Adkins. Be sure to give us both a follow. We'll be sure to follow you back. Let us know you caught us on the show, and we'll be sure to get you in our group. We also have a group chat on X for the wrestling. It's actually for the Fans of Pro Wrestling. I don't know why I don't ever remember to change that. I'm going to change that right now while we're talking about it and taking our break, because I say this every freaking episode we've done, and I apologize.
I've decided every time you say X, I'm going to do the X, the DX or shop. It'll be like, maybe we can get a soundbite. X-Pac,
So there we go on the banner. We also have a group chat on X for the fans of pro wrestling. Get with me, Carlos, or Brian on how to join. Just hit us up in our DMs and we'll tell you what it takes to just get right in there. Again, follow us on the X app. John, that's me, at WF and the FOPW network. Brian.
At the Brian Adkins.
Again, check us out on our webpage as well, thefansofprowrestling.com. My YouTube channel at Wrestling Fans Insight. Follow us on Twitch every once in a while when we go live, the Fans of Pro Wrestling. And also, we've already discussed Brian's X handle, but let's also go and check out his YouTube channel, Tap Out Talk, at Tap Out Talk. Be sure to like and subscribe and help his algorithm out, will you, folks? And Brian, shall we get more into night 2 now?
Let's get into night 2. I am going to be annoying with that X app thing now. It's going to be a thing on the show. I'm going to tell everybody to start doing it.
As long as you don't get up and give us the X cross chop, we're good. You know, this is kind of a somewhat downgraded episode here. Well, downgraded podcast. But let's go with what started off night 2, which I felt this kind of was more the main event than anything. A triple threat for the Women's World Championship. Io Sky successfully retains over Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, which unfortunately Bianca Belair's WrestleMania undefeated streak comes to an end. I feel bad for that, but I don't feel bad knowing that Io Sky retained her championship. Also, I believe it was her birthday yesterday, so first off, happy belated and congrats on retaining Io. For me, Brian, I thought this was the right call, even though I predicted Bianca Belair to win. I think with the promos that led up to where the disrespect to Io Sky as the champion and not being taken seriously, this was the way to tell the story at WrestleMania. Io Sky was the right person to keep the championship on, making her be more seen than what the other two competitors were realizing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this to me was a great opening match. It picked up right where night 1's triple threat match left off in a sense of the same action. I didn't know it was Io's birthday, so that actually kind of really makes me happy that this was the opening match. I'm sure they did it on purpose so that way she could have more of her night. Very professional courtesy there. But ultimately, Io Sky winning, I mean, that puts her right there on the level of Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley because she was kind of the lighter version of that, the Nick Jr. to the Nickelodeon, right? Like, she's there, she's champ. This made her credible and made her beat 2 WrestleManias. I noticed, again, much like the Gunther Jey Uso match, and I hate when they do this, they announced, Bianca Belair is, I believe she is undefeated in championship matches at WrestleMania, right? And then Rhea Ripley was the other one, was like an undefeated streak or something like that. And I was like, oh no, they just both literally said they're undefeated in these kind of and I was like, Io's going to win. Sure enough, Io won, right? And but no, it was a great styles clash between these 3 too. And I really could have seen it going either way, but it was just fun. And I felt like I was apprehensively starting to enjoy myself because I was like, oh God, how's tonight going to go compared to last night? And I said, please, ladies, set the tone. Please show everybody what kind of to keep the crowd and the energy. And they did such a good job. Shout out to all of them. And they got it right with Io winning. And Bianca and Rhea could continue their feud if they want. But I found it very interesting. Final point before I turn it over to you, that they announced Io from Damage Control. And I found it interesting that they highlighted that because I felt like they downplayed that over the last year or so. But now, for some reason, that was highlighted by the announcer, the ring announcer. So what was your thoughts?
Well, let me touch base on that, where you mentioned they announced her representing Damage Control, which is interesting because does that tell us very shortly here that Kairi Singh is about to come back? Who knows? Asuka might be coming back. And if that is the case, Damage Control could be really shortly in the women's tag team title contention right away. especially with the new crown champions, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. But yeah, this goes to show that no matter how small you are, how big you are, the skill set there with Io Sky, she's just a wicked force to be there in the women's division. She is an awfully skilled talent there, and I think we're going to just see her keep elevating that women's championship, much like Rhea did. I would love to see Io keep a lengthy reign with this championship. I felt her first championship ring under the SmackDown brand was kind of cut a little too short, dropping it to Bayley from last year's WrestleMania. So I hope this one will kind of give her, but I don't know the proper words to say this. I really hope she shows what a fighting and true champion that she really is and can be.
Kind of like a status quo, kind of like an elevated.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Someone can help me out because I fumble on words a lot. So, why don't we move on to the Sin City Street Fight? I thought this was a very interesting match, especially the way it finished. Drew McIntyre gets revenge on Damian Priest from last year's WrestleMania. I thought that was pretty wicked at the end, how Drew gave Damian Priest that Claymore with the chair in the corner, man. That looked pretty wicked.
I thought Damian was hurt. I really did. I was like, ouch, because, they kind of showed him he was just kind of like, hey, can't breathe. But then they kind of cut away real quick to the ref, he was saying. This matchup, the entrances felt very good. It felt WrestleMania-like. It was fun. You had Slayer, or the guitarist for Slayer, playing out Damian Priest. And then you had Drew McIntyre. This was a sponsorship entrance, but it didn't feel like a Doom sponsorship. Like if you knew it, you knew it. But I also felt like it wasn't too far away from something that Drew would do for special. And it didn't bother me, right, with that, where sponsorships later in the night would get a little more annoying. But ultimately, I asked myself, I said, what match is going to follow up the ladies? And how are we going to do that? And then they came out the Sin City Street Fight. And I said, perfect. Do it. Perfect. Because now it's a different type of match and it's more ringside and chairs. And to your point, in chairs in the corner that ended it with the Claymore. And Drew got in his social media post, right? Still bored at work. And I proudly retweeted that bad boy because I just love it. And he is by far one of my favorite, just entertaining wrestlers to watch nowadays. And he does the little things and nobody's bored watching him work. So Drew McIntyre, entertaining. Bold prediction right now. Drew McIntyre will be a WWE World Champion within the next year. And I feel maybe he's the one that takes down, a Cody or a John Cena down the line, right? Or maybe he's the one that takes down Jey Uso. But I feel like he could get a Mania moment next year too, because he never got that right in front of a live crowd. And he's worked very hard. Him and Damian Priest have good chemistry. They've now kind of interacted with each other the last two Manias, and I feel like there's a rivalry there. What was your overall?
Well, I kind of thought he did get his Mania moment last year defeating Seth Rollins. It wasn't a very long one, unfortunately, but in some ways I kind of thought he got redeemed somewhat for that with that great match he had. But unfortunately, him taunting CM Punk and Damian Priest coming to cash in, it was very short-lived. And kind of funny because Drew McIntyre was complaining about Jey Uso still eating.
That was funny.
And I have to give a shout out to Stephanie Hypes for quote tweeting that, saying, well, his championship reigns lasted longer than yours. So
that's pretty funny.
So shout out to Stephanie Hypes also for her getting her question on the press conference tonight too. This match, I thought it was a great follow to the ladies. It just kept the fans' interest. It didn't overstay its welcome, is like what you would normally say.
Yeah.
It didn't go too long. It wasn't too short. It was right there at the sweet spot. I thought the way they ended it was the perfect way to get that second match in between these two. And I think we're still going to see some more between Seth and Damian here very shortly. Who knows? Maybe even for a number one contendership to the World Heavyweight Championship. Because in some ways, you can tell that Drew still has some unfinished business with Jey Uso.
Yep. I think they want to reward him for CM Punk in that feud in the last year too. They rewarded Punk this year with the main event spot that he wanted, and I think they're going to reward Drew. Just something tells me it makes too much sense.
And here's one for our boy Carlos, the Fatal 4-Way Intercontinental Championship. Dirty Dom Mysterio becomes the new Intercontinental Champion. And how bittersweet to pin his very own Judgment Day member Finn Balor, but also defeating Penta and Braun Breaker in the process. I have to say this was a pretty awesome night for Dirty Dom. I felt he truly earned this, but also not only making him look great with this win, his, I believe, second singles championship in the WWE. But nobody looked weak in this match, especially Braun Breaker, where he was never pinned. I think this was a great setup. Maybe we even see Braun Breaker possibly feud with Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship here very soon. Your take?
Yeah, it was a fun match. A great interaction between all the guys. One thing that kind of got under my skin a little bit with the match was the constant sponsorship references.
What sponsorships? I didn't see anything out there.
Oh yeah, you didn't. Well, and even in the commentary, like it was very over the top with Wade Barrett in this one. I know there's probably somebody in his ear telling him to do this, but at one point, can I just enjoy the match and not be thrown a constant commercial? With that, I'll leave that point alone. But this was a good match. Crazy point, over on my channel, I started having an assistant fill in with some WrestleMania predictions, my artificial intelligence assistant, Lana, and she predicted that Finn Balor would win this matchup, and she was super close on that prediction. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to predict all of WrestleMania. And so AI is a crazy thing, guys. And, if a Terminator thing happens in my house, Lana Iarda's, it's going to be her fault. She's listening now. So ultimately, Dirty Dom Mysterio getting this win, is the right thing to do. And one of my friends pointed out, shout out to my friend, I believe it was James or Todd, they actually noticed that Dom went back to the ring to celebrate right after leaving the ring. And they said, very, very face-like style to go back and celebrate with the crowd when you're being cheered. And they feel like that could be a sign of maybe things to come with him in this title. So thoughts on that? Could we see him as a face against Finn Balor in Judgment Day?
I don't know, because he's done so much. He does so much heelish shit, especially when he keeps talking about his father like he did in the post-match or the post-show. Keep calling his dad a deadbeat father. And the way he sat there and asked Big E, hey, you're an Intercontinental Champion. Big E says, yeah, twice. And he says, oh, hell, I'm already better than you. I thought Dom did a really great job in the post interview, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on the Peacock Network. But I don't know. I mean, the way he's got cheered in Las Vegas, you never know how he's going to get cheered the next night, like on Raw.
Yeah.
It's funny how, depending on the location where WrestleMania is, the next night on Raw, it's a whole different world, because, you got fans always expecting a heel or face turn, or, factions breaking up.
Yep.
There's a lot of factors to it. I think, obviously, Finn's going to be kicked out of Judgment Day, but I don't think I don't know if Dom's going to go toward the babyface way. I kind of would see more Finn Balor moving toward that direction than anything based off what happened. But again, Judgment Day could be going toward a face turn too. Who knows?
We haven't seen really that. That's a good point.
Yeah, we haven't seen Judgment Day become heels except for when, Rhea and Damian were starting to go kind of on their own, but they didn't stay with the faction either. So there could be that good chance that may happen. Who knows? Judgment Day may turn on Dominic for all we know. I mean, there's a lot to play off the way that Fatal 4-Way ended last night, and I'm going to be really interested to see what happens as far as the development of Judgment Day going forward. Because, the other interesting thing we'll talk about later involves the former women's tag team champions. But let's not get too much into that yet. We can talk a little more going forward. For the next match, though, as we all know, Kevin Owens sustained a very serious career-threatening injury. We don't know if he's going to be back yet or not. The hopes is he is. He did have a successful surgery. It's just now a matter of father time and the healing process. We wish Kevin Owens well. We hope he gets better, and we hope to see him back on the TV sooner than later. But unfortunately, Randy Orton was left without an opponent until he gave Nick Aldis a nice little second RKO prepaid. But we end up getting a very mysterious opponent. Many people in the IWC thought Rusev was coming, and unfortunately, I don't know if anybody was paying attention to Rusev's social media. I don't believe he was anywhere near Vegas, if I recall. So I knew that wasn't going to be the case. My gut feeling was it was going to be Nick Aldis coming back for revenge and getting a WrestleMania moment. That didn't happen. But there were very few that predicted Joe Hendry, and that is what happened. Joe Hendry came out, accepted Randy Orton's open challenge. Unfortunately, his showboating costed him RKO out of nowhere. Randy Orton gets the victory on his 20th WrestleMania. Sorry for my voice. I'm going through puberty again. Randy Orton gets the victory on his 20th WrestleMania. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, so it was the right call, pulling in Joe Hendry for a couple reasons. One, business. It shows a very good faith effort towards the TNA partnership. So I absolutely applaud that. I am surprised that WWE surprised, not surprised, right? Like, it makes sense. And with the world of these forbidden doors being opened, you have to show that, hey, we're not just trying to use you. We're trying to help too. Here's a Mania spot, right? And so it was great for that. It was a nice nod to the fans of all wrestling content, right? And it was like, hey, here's your guy now getting his chance, right? Some people say that, oh, they buried Joe Hendry. I don't think that's the case.
No.
A TNA championship showing up at WrestleMania, that's called a rub. That is the biggest, meaning it rubs off on you, right? So, and they did that for him. The one thing I think it did hurt when I was seeing Joe Hendry next to Randy Orton. Orton is so much bigger than him.
He was almost like twice his size.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, and I don't consider Randy like a giant dude. Like, he's a good built guy, right? But he's not like a Goldberg or Ryback, you know what I mean? Like, but ultimately I'm like, wow, he looks super small. So unfortunately it looked a little weird, but they had a good, fun match. They got it done. It was the right call to bring somebody in like this because Joe Hendry will benefit from it. That TNA championship will benefit from it. And you couldn't have brought in a Rusev or anybody thinking about it hindsight, because whoever's coming in is going to lose that night to Orton. And you can't re-debut somebody and throw them in there and just get murdered with an RKO. So it was great all around. I liked what Orton did at the end of the matchup. Okay, he did the Joe Hendry pose with his, shine the light pose, right? But I like the fact that he kind of tapped Hendry on the ground, like a double tap, like, you're okay, kid. It was almost like a nice little welcome welcome to WWE. You know, I'm sure. And the fact that Joe Hendry, I feel like Randy likes him, that's going to bode well for his career with Triple H. If Randy can give you the approval and the nod, you're going to be okay. And I feel like that will carry throughout the business. And, you know, heck, we heard Layla talk about it on my show. You know, she said the politics matter. You know, she said, just get on the right side of the politics, I think was her quote. And I would agree with that 100%. And I feel like this is a good start. So, yeah. Were you shocked when you seen, or did you believe all along he was going to be there?
I had a feeling he was going to be there, but again, my prediction was it was going to be Nick Aldis to get his revenge.
Same.
As far as shocked, I wouldn't say shocked, but I was happy. One, because Joe Hendry came on one of the biggest stages of all. Whether you like the WWE or not, WrestleMania is the bar as far as big time. I mean, you can agree with that. You can disagree with it all you want. Any talent will tell you WrestleMania is the end goal, regardless, is always the top goal. Joe Hendry made it. For those who, again, not to keep mentioning the post show, and I will be actually talking about the post show and digging into some of it in my next episode of the Wrestling Fans Insight. But the one thing I do want to bring up without giving too much is Triple H mentioned Joe Hendry in the post show and said, you know, how excited this guy was to come be a part of it. And Triple H guaranteed us this isn't going to be the last WrestleMania moment for Joe Hendry. And I think that shows a lot of great promise in Joe Hendry's career. And I really hope we can get him out of the somewhat cheesy stage of his character and see something a little more serious out of him. Yep. For those who didn't watch him in, I believe it was Insane Championship Wrestling there in the UK. If you haven't seen any of Joe Hendry stuff there, you need to definitely go check it out, especially in some of the stuff he did with Ring of Honor. This guy has got a net factor to him. And if he keeps going and staying as healthy as he has been, he's still got a potential to become a world champion. We've already seen him there with TNA. I think we can see him there here in WWE shortly.
The only other, real quick on this one, the only other option I heard there was only two people that was actually in the candidacy for this match with Randy. One being Joe Hendry, obviously they went that route. The other was Jeff Hardy. And obviously they went with Joe, but would that have been a different ending? No, but would that have been better than Joe Hendry? Thoughts?
No. Yeah. Because here's the thing, and this is not to take anything away from Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy's done everything he possibly can with the WWE. You know, moving on from the WWE, going to AEW, also other places like Ring of Honor. I can't remember if they made it to New Japan or not. But now the Hardys are the current TNA Tag Team Champions still, I believe. And that's my bad for not watching TNA. Sorry, folks. But I don't think it would have been a good move to put Jeff Hardy there. And not to crap on Jeff Hardy fans, I think having Joe Hendry there made more sense just because, one, Joe Hendry is a fresh face to WrestleMania, but two, how popular the guy is. I think Joe Hendry would have got the bigger pop than Jeff Hardy, to be honest.
And this is an active choice. I want everybody to kind of hear this because this is an active choice the WWE made. It was going to be one of those two guys, and they chose the TNA champion over a former WWE champion. So people that say, oh, they're buried, they're only worried about WWE history guys and stuff. I'm like, no, they gave an up-and-comer an option who isn't directly signed with their company, right? So they chose, and people forget Jeff Hardy was a WWE champion and supposed to be kind of a main event here. And so I just want to point that out because I don't think it gets spoken enough in the community that choice was actively made. So
All right. Eventually, we will believe in Joe Hendry. Carlos didn't. No, just kidding, Carlos.
I couldn't resist because he was like, "Oh, I knew it all along." I'm like, "Yeah, but you didn't believe. You didn't make it in your prediction, bro." But I was like, "I can't resist." Love you, Carlos.
Let's go on. Logan Paul defeats AJ Styles. Very great match. Right call to have Logan Paul go over AJ. I don't really want to get too much in the kind of the IWC talk, but we might as well put it out there. I think the big talks right now, AJ Styles has got very limited dates left with WWE. If not, they're already used up. Possibly his contract's coming to an end. Many of the IWCs talking about AJ moving on from the WWE. We don't actually know that for sure here at the Wrestling Fans Insight. Don't hold us to that. But if AJ Styles was going to continue with WWE, just sort of say to play in this scenario, do you think this would have been the right call to have Logan Paul defeat AJ Styles?
Yeah, I do. AJ has done everything he can in WWE, and I don't think they're going to do much more, right? I mean, this man had an Undertaker's match at Mania, right? The buried, not buried alive match.
Undertaker's last WrestleMania match.
What they call that? Graveyard
match or something.
Yeah. So ultimately, he had some great moments. He's been a champion. But I mean, I think we're at the point of his career where we're just finding stuff for AJ, right? And I think the WWE knows that, they're not going to push too much further with a main event. I mean, sure, you're going to give him a title shot here and there, much like Cody Rhodes, right? But he's kind of fallen into that realm of, well, we like AJ. What can we do for him? Right. And I think there's a good relationship, but I just think it's going to be more about what AJ wants. Right. And if AJ likes the idea of where he works and he likes the idea of, a nice paycheck with people he knows and enjoys and is okay being in the role he's in, I think, he'd stay with WWE. If AJ wants to venture out, maybe go to a AEW or anywhere else, I believe AJ would have to make that talk. And I believe somebody like a Tony Khan would have to give him the same kind of limited schedule that he would want, less travel and this and that. And because I know he's got a few kids and, they're probably at that age where it's important to be present. So ultimately, I could see it going either way. I could see him getting the wrestling itch, but it would definitely, AJ is going to name his terms. Much like when he came to WWE, they wanted him to, kind of sign over a lot of stuff, right? The Phenomenal, all the AJ Styles, the Styles Clash, like everything he built. And he said no. And he also said, I'm not going to NXT either, right? And then WWE eventually said, yeah, okay, fine. You can keep what you own, right? And so the Phenomenal Forum might be the only thing that's tied in there. That's maybe not. But ultimately, I think he'll name his terms if he goes anywhere else. And I could see people like Mox saying, hey, yeah, Tony will work with you. It's not that bad. And if you need time off. And I think Jericho would do the same thing, so I feel like he could be recruited out. And we got the, the Cruise. He could be recruited out, but I think it's really going to come down to AJ. And I don't think they're kicking him out of the company. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I've ever said to you guys in a group chat, I never am going to ask anyone to leave, but I'm not going to beg you to stay. I think that's kind of the situation AJ's in. But Mike, who is a constant talker in Carlos's X space, has mentioned many a times, AJ's got a lot of things going on here shortly. He's got some kids that are about to hit college here, and he's going to need some moolah, to get those kids in the college. And, if it came to a bidding war, I think obviously Tony Khan's going to offer a lot more money than what WWE is going to offer. And I think the smart move would be take the money for the right schedule, And I think AEW has more of that offering than what the WWE is going to. But again, it's going to depend on who makes that offer from WWE or take TKO, whoever it is that's financing that contract deal.
You know what? If they do that, I want to see Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels, one last time.
Well, unfortunately, CD's retired, and we found out
busy.
we found out Curry Man wrestled his last match on the cruise. So,
oh no. But I feel like that could be an all-in matchup, triple threat one last time, and it'd write itself.
Or even just have Christopher Daniels be the referee. Who knows?
Right. As we go.
But yeah, I think if that is the case, I think it was the right call to have Logan Paul go over.
Yep.
Logan Paul definitely gains more defeating a legend like AJ Styles. But if AJ is looking to seek elsewhere, then like you mentioned, he's done it all. It's not like he needs any more accolades in the WWE or anywhere else he chooses to go, So
if you want to get eyes on the product and your new shiny champion in Jey Uso, put him in a match with Logan Paul. That'll get some influencer following over there. So too, that's just a random thought that popped in my head.
All right, let's move on to the second to last match of night 2. The WWE Women's Tag Team Championships have changed hands to the team of Lyra Valkyria and the woman who filled in for Bayley, Becky Lynch, who made her return, defeating the team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. I don't know. I was kind of hoping if Dom or Finn won the Intercontinental Championship, my pick was going to have Liv Morgan and Raquel stay as the champions.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. And I'm like, well, okay. So now that we got Lyra and Becky as the new champions, what's next for them? I mean, obviously NXT, they've got to get prepared for Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. Unfortunately, you didn't watch NXT, so you're not going to know much about that, but that is who they are going to be facing on Tuesday night. But taking out Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley, as far as main roster, what is next for Lyra and Becky? And where do Liv and Raquel go from here?
Yeah. You know what? Let's throw back to what we just talked about a little while ago with Damage Control. All right. That could be maybe, a version of something we could see. Interesting in this match. I mean, it was the quick fill match that kind of filled in. Everybody got the pop for Becky coming back. I feel like there was a better choice than Becky. There's actually somebody who has last minute WrestleMania championship winning experience, tag team championship winning experience. And this person was literally picked out of a crowd at WrestleMania and won a WWE tag team championship. You remember who that is?
Yeah, good old Nick.
Good old Nicholas. I literally was like, Nicholas, get Nicholas. But I was like, he can do it again. He did it before, right? But no, all joking aside, it was great to see Becky back in there. And, her and Lyra have that connection. So it just kind of made sense. It's interesting what the deal is with Bayley and kind of where that's going. I'm kind of a little bit lost on that. But ultimately, I think these two do make sense as tag champs. So that's about it on that for me.
And I'll get into it a little more on the next episode. Like I said, I'm going to talk a little more with what was said on the post show and have some excellent sound bites coming up.
Cool.
Hunter made it a point to saying Bayley's okay. She's a pro. I think a lot of people were really upset that Bayley wasn't in this match because she earned it. But if for anyone who's been following the dirt sheets or behind the scenes, this was planned for quite some time. And, Bayley being attacked was a write-off for Becky to make her return. But to your point, which now I kind of understand because you're right on that sense. Lyra and Becky have good chemistry. They've worked well together in the NXT Women's Championship match where Becky put over Lyra when Lyra came onto the main roster. You know, she worked a little bit with Becky here and there, not so much on TV, but behind the scenes and whatnot. I'll tell you, they do make a great team. I'm just a little concerned now with Lyra holding 2 belts. How are they going to further her career now holding those 2?
Well, they're trying to get that Lyra 2 belts bit, over. They've tried to put it over all night long, right? I'm sure they have a shirt on order ready to make, but it just dawned on me too. Bayley and Damage Control. Like maybe that's the feud that we don't see in front of us, but it's right in front of us, right? Maybe it is Becky and Lyra versus Bayley and one of the Damage Control members, right? So maybe they, put that back together again, and that would make sense for Bayley to be mad at Becky taking her spot and give her kind of a feud there. So it just kind of clicked for me while we were talking.
Yeah, I have a feeling though they're going to throw Roxanne Perez in the story that attacked Bayley, but I don't know. It's kind of a little early to tell, but we'll eventually see how the story develops. But to your point, Damage Control. Interesting they mentioned that for Io Sky's match to say she's representing Damage Control, which one or two things happening. Like you mentioned earlier, Bayley's reuniting, or we see Asuka and Kairi Singh coming back right away and getting themselves in the tag team title contentions, possibly even a triple threat where we see Rodriguez and Morgan taking on Damage Control, taking on the new champs, Becky and Lyra. There's another scenario we could possibly see coming up shortly.
That would be fun.
But anyways, any more thoughts on this before we go to the main event?
No, man, let's talk about it. It's the main event.
Oh boy. Unfortunately, Cody didn't live up to his promise. Number 17 happened. The undisputed WWE Championship, John Cena dethrones Cody Rhodes. And I feel bad for Carlos because he was always praying for Randy to be that one that gets 17.
Randy.
Sorry, buddy. But yeah, I always had a feeling it was going to be John Cena. And that's what happened for sure. But the one thing I have to say, I kind of felt like this was a very underwhelming match. Don't get me wrong, John Cena is still in great shape, but you can definitely tell Father Time's catching up. Not moving as fast as he was in the ring before. The interference with Travis Scott, I'm still scratching my head. Why? Why,
Travis? Why?
Yeah, and a little disappointed that. Well, I shouldn't say disappointed because really, if you look at the last 2 WrestleMania main events, they were definitely overbooked to death. People were always whining and crying, so much interference. But
is it bad that I like it though?
Yeah,
I mean, I do. I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I have to say is WWE did a good job making the fans expect something else was going to happen because right after Travis Scott came out and did his shenanigans, you kept seeing the crowd stand up and look right to the aisleway. You're like, oh, they're going to be so disappointed. And sure enough, they were because nobody came out. I mean, pretty much it was all done by John Cena and Travis Scott. And I can't really say I was disappointed with Cena getting 17. I kind of felt like so many kickouts on Cena's finisher may have just been way overdone on this. But Brian, why don't we get your reaction on that?
All right. This is it's going to be there's so much to talk about on this one. So I'm trying to phrase it into segment here. So it's when it comes to the match itself, let's start there. The match, if you take away the Travis Scott stuff, okay, the match wasn't terrible in my mind, right? Like, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, right? Like, but it was like, it wasn't a bad match, right? And it was the Travis Scott thing that just, and the lack of The Rock showing up, that just really hijacked this moment for John Cena, in my opinion. Breaking Ric Flair's world record, right? 17. That should have been a more epic moment that was not given to this Travis Scott hype train. Okay, so that should have been John winning this. There should have been a massive celebration, whether there's cheers or boos, right? And I felt like it got taken away a little bit, but let me preface it with saying that nobody outworks John Cena. John Cena, this man has given up so much for wrestling, and wrestling has given him so much, right? So if anybody deserves it, I do truly believe it's John Cena that does deserve to break that record. So I want to be on record saying that. I fully believe that. And the man has given up so much to not just in and out of the company, right? So with that being said, let's go with the Travis Scott aspect. I was not a fan of that, taking away from those moments. I felt like, let's get into The Rock. Let's get into Dwayne Johnson. I've said it once, I've said it again. In a world of Dwayne Johnson's, be a John Cena. So Dwayne has got to, I'm just going to say it. He has got to figure out whether he wants to be present or not. I know that sounds critical, but it's reminding me of the girl you invite to the pool party and she only puts her legs in the water. You know what I mean? Like, and she's like, oh, I'm just going to put my feet in the water. Everybody's playing water volleyball. Get in here, right? This is WrestleMania. We left WrestleMania without knowing why John Cena is even aligned with The Rock. And WrestleMania was supposed to be the payoff. Now, I believe that John Cena and Cody Rhodes did such a great job building this feud. I don't even think it needed Dwayne. I don't think that it needed to be aligned with Dwayne and to have him insert himself into this main event. I believe those two guys could have still got the job done. But what we got is we got half in the water. We got our legs dipped in, right? When everybody was in the pool having fun, and we got everybody having fun there trying to celebrate this great moment of 17. And we got the legs in the water that are Travis Scott that just dipped in the pool a little bit. And that's why people are so mad, right? Because you either jump in and have fun and be all about it, or you stay away, right? And WrestleMania is not meant to be the middle point of a story. It's supposed to be a culmination. And whether it's this year and it could be next year, right? But I felt like the fans deserved a little payoff, even a little bit of an explanation or something that takes us into Raw. And I don't think it's fair to rely on Travis Scott to do all of that work all by himself with John. So, in or out for Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, I would have been okay with either way, honestly. I would have been okay with him not being there. I would have been okay with him. But I felt like that was a disappointment for the fans. I do want to bring up a point my friend said, which I thought was interesting. He's like, I feel like the ending of this was bad on purpose. That's his opinion. Because he said that I feel like this is John when he said he's going to kill wrestling. This is John's way of doing it, and he wants to end the way we look at faces and heels and good guys and bad guys. And there's going to be way more to tell there. And I would agree with that. It was an intriguing thought that really got me thinking of we could be onto something very unique in his final year. Man, I really, really feel like this should have went one way and picked a direction and drove, and it just kind of veered in the lane like Swerve, right? It swerved when it drove. And I really would have, right, but I would have liked to seen, that commitment. I'm going to finalize this point. Dwayne's got to pick whether he's in or out because of the mere fact 2 years ago, he wrestled in a tag match. That's awesome. Main event tag match against Owens and Zayn. You haven't wrestled in a while, get some rust off. That's a good, safe match. Nothing last year. That's okay. You were still there. You were present. You were involved, right? I wonder if Dwayne, in his heart, knows that he's not in wrestling ring shape. There's a difference. There's a difference between being in a gym and being in gym shape, and there's a difference between being in wrestling shape. And I'm taking that as like when I did MMA stuff, right? Like there's fight shape, and then there's just being in shape, right? And it's totally two different things. And I do wonder, and we'll never know, but I do wonder if, and I get he's a busy guy, but if you're going to be all in, be all in. And why John Cena deserves 17 titles versus a Dwayne is because John has always been all in. And John's going to be all in for this next year, and it's not a part-time wrestler. He's going to be there every week, just as he has in his Mania build, as he promised. That's long-winded. I had to get all that out. I felt like I just had a lot to say about it. I'm going to pass it over to you now, my man.
Well, I was going to ask you, tell us how you really feel, and don't sugarcoat it this time,
Yeah.
But no, I agree. Rock needs to make a decision. Is he going to be a part of this, or is he going to just sit back and watch from the sideline? And, I feel bad for the final boss lady in our group chat because he mentioned, no Dwayne, I'm gone. And I'm like, oh, that kind of came back in bitter.
I wanted the tweeter to be like, don't go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, tie her up, make sure she doesn't go anywhere. And shout out to the DWE community, Final Boss Lady in Miami did great. They run a really great community on the X app. And if you're not a part of their group, you need to be, especially if you're a wrestling fan and not a tribalistic wrestling fan. But yeah, you're right. Rock needs to make a decision. Come play or sit out. Don't be this guy who just shows up intermittently and you decide you want to wrestle now, but you're not ready to go. It's kind of like us in the trucking business. As much as us truck drivers have a great way to represent ourselves with image, people don't believe that you can be in shape, but if you're not in trucker shape, you're not going to make it. It's like the wrestling shape. You're either in wrestling, you can be in shape, but if you're not in wrestling shape, you're not going to make it, and it's not going to. And the end game is not going to be very well. I think John Cena's doing a great job as far as what he's doing with his character. As we all saw, we didn't see any of that normal, colorful John Cena hustle, loyalty, respect. It was just black and white John Cena, and then number 17 afterwards. And then again, not to keep bringing up post show, I loved his answers to every question. This is a clickbait question.
Yeah.
Or a clickbait headline, or everything was clickbait the way he answered. I think he's done a really great job flipping the coin and is able to play this heel role the way he is. Well, even though he's not a heel, he's not a face, he's a human being. I think he's done a remarkable job in this. I think this was the John Cena we wanted to see 20 years ago when fans were booing him, and definitely felt like the fans felt like he was forced on us, even though really he wasn't. But yeah, if we saw this John Cena 20 years ago, Brian.
Oh yeah.
Do you think this would have worked?
20 years ago, that would put us at 2005, right?
Well, let me rephrase that. If we saw
sorry.
this maybe 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay. Because I'm like, okay, well, let me think here.
All right. I got two ahead in the future here.
So about 2015, I honestly believe John could have made it work. I really believe when he's focused, he can get stuff done. And this payoff, we could end up seeing, it could be something cool, right? It could end up being, I know John said only for 2025, but it could be next year at Mania, right? It could be John and Cody again, and maybe Triple H is in Cody's corner, and maybe The Rock's in John's corner, right? And we get a little Triple H main event in there. There's so many ways they could go with it, but I do think that John could pull off a heel, but I know at the time, I believe he was very kind of against it, right? And when you're against something, but you're asked to do it, kind of goes to what we were saying earlier with the Flair Stratton match. Are you doing the job or are you working? And when your heart's into something, you're truly working because you love to create and you love to, work and you enjoy what you do. And I feel like my question back to you was, would John have truly enjoyed what he was doing if he tried to do this back in 2015?
I think, if you listen to past interviews, John wanted to go heel.
Okay.
But the problem is, on a business side, which makes sense, at that time, John Cena was still the top selling merch. John, with the way he was going with Make-A-Wish, that would have really been hard to turn John heel.
Yeah.
Because if you've seen the amount of merch sales he was doing, could you imagine if he turned heel and there was no merch sales?
Yeah.
And that could take a plummet. I mean, that's what Steve Austin wanted to do back in, I want to say it was either 2001 or 2002. I can't remember, or might have even been, no, I think it was 2001. He wanted to turn heel. Unfortunately, it kind of backfired because fans just weren't buying the heel turn.
WrestleMania 17, I believe.
Right. And, unfortunately for John Cena, I don't think it would have mattered despite a lot of fans booing him arena to arena. He was still the top selling merch. So would it have made sense to make him go full blown heel? I don't know. That one would be a really hard thing to answer because it's amazing how unpredictable the wrestling business can be, especially now. John Cena, he's the greatest of all time. I still think he would still be a top selling merch guy around next to Cody. I think Cody would still be on top right now, despite anything. But I don't think it would have worked out very well 10 years ago. I think right now, with him doing the character work he is in, I think this is going to be a great final ride for John Cena. And right now is the best time for him to play it and enjoy it till he calls it good.
Yeah. Good talk, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming on and joining me tonight for this recording. It was kind of unplanned, folks, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you have enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate a like on our channel at the Wrestling Fans Insight on YouTube, or be sure to check us out on the audio version on Spotify. Find us at the Wrestling Fans Insight there as well. But yeah, give us a like, a subscribe, and get those notifications going every time we release a new episode. Again, next episode, I plan on getting a little more detailed into the post-show, WrestleMania post-show. I will have some sound bites and kind of give you my thoughts on the ones that I really enjoyed the most. Again, we're going to kind of promote our teammate Carlos C to the LOS 77 on the X app. Be sure to go check him out. Go check out his account for his future X Space conversation episodes. Typically after Raw on Mondays and after Dynamite on Wednesdays. Really great wrestling talk with a bunch of friends there. Very knowledgeable wrestling fans, by the way. Be sure to go get in there, engage a bit, get your voice heard. Best place to go do it. Also, check out and participate in our X community, the Fans of Pro Wrestling. Check it out under the Fans of Pro Wrestling X profile at FOPW Network. We also have a group chat, the Fans of Pro Wrestling. Get with me, Carlos, or Brian on how to join. Just hit us up in our DMs. And with that being said, our X handles, me, John at WFI Pod and the FOPW Network. Brian
at D Brian Adkins.
And again, go check out our webpage, thefansofprowrestling.com, where you could see episodes like this, even some feature episodes of Tap Out Talk. And if you go to the X Space section, you can catch some of Carlos's past episodes. I've kind of fallen behind in Haven't had time to get them up there, but hopefully this week I'll start being back on track. My apologies, Carlos. Again, I'm on YouTube at Wrestling Fans Insight and on Twitch when we go live, the Fans of Pro Wrestling. And be sure to go follow Brian at the Brian Adkins, as he mentioned, and his YouTube channel, Tap Out Talk, at Tap Out Talk. Woo, that was a mouthful. Brian, before we call it good, you have any final thoughts?
I'll keep it basic. Thank you to the community on all platforms. Thank you for the real wrestling fans and sports entertainer fans that just enjoy. If you guys are like us, right, you have friends and family that are into wrestling, but this gives us a whole wide world of platform of people that really have a massive fandom, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys have had. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and give my shout outs. Thank you to everybody who does take the time to listen to us. Even though we don't always get everything right, we love to get our opinions and views out there, as well as talking with each and every one of you, discussing nothing but pro wrestling. Also, thank you for those of you who do subscribe to the Wrestling Fans Insight. We're quite not as popular as Brian, but we did hit over 1,000 in subscribers.
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody who has taken that chance to come back and keep listening to our shenanigans. But as far as my shout outs, I do need to get them out there because I've been really terrible with shout outs on my last few episodes. First off, the SportCoin Network. We are SportCoin certified. If you are into crypto, go check out their network on the X app at SportCoin1. And also, we are a part of the Saged Up Network, a group of fellow sports fans, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey, football, soccer, baseball. I'm sure I said that again. Pro wrestling, just about any sport, you name it. Saged Up Network just about has it. Also, big shout out to the DWE group again, Miami the Great and the Final Boss Lady for running such an awesome community. They also have a fun group chat that is huge, almost up to 200 people, and sometimes they have a list to get in. So be sure to go check them out. Follow them on the X app as well. Same with the Wrestle Collective. They do X Spaces. Sometimes Carlos is there joining them as a co-host. They do theirs usually every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Be sure to go follow them. Also, a big shout out to our podcasting friends, Jim over at the Fan in the Van, the Steel and Teal Talk Pod, Two Dudes Sports News, the Brutally Honest Sports, 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, Nate Daily Wager and Wire, In a Pickle Pod, and also I think they go by IAP Radio. Also check out Visit Vegas Places with Coil, Brian's Tap Out Talk, of course. Be sure to go check out our friend Ted the Hillbilly Hill. He does Ted's Takes on Wrestling on YouTube with short video clips. He does a very great job. And remember, don't make mistakes. Trust Ted's Takes. That was a mouthful there myself. Big shout out to my brother. Unfortunately, he's never able to attend during the weekdays, which we recorded on a weekday. So, William, hope you're doing good, brother. We'll catch you the next time we start recording live. Brian, do you have anything else to throw out there?
And a partridge in a pear tree. We're good.
Sweet. All right. Well, wrestling fans, again, we'll be back on the next episode discussing more of the WrestleMania post show. And without any further ado, we hope you enjoy this week's wrestling, and peace out.